Welcome to the MLF1 podcast, episode 4. We have a special guest, Mbalu Makau. Welcome to Semabox at the Baraza Media Lab.
Thank you very much.
Mbalu Makau is the founder of the Paddock Experience, premier Kenya event host for Formula One parties. How did you get interested in F1?
I got interested in F1, I would say by accident. This happened way back, I think it was 2003. Happened to purchase my first DSTV decoder and just getting in terms of trying to find out what this decoder has. I mean, at that time it was all about, we all knew that, DSTV had multiple channels. So flipping through the channels happened to catch the Brazilian Grand Prix. And from then on, I was hooked. Ended up watching the whole season 2003. And from then on, it's just watching year after year, getting more information about the sport online, Formula1.com. And in 2010 is when the interest picked me that I said that, why don't I try and watch a race live and see what the experience is all about by going to watch a race live. Unfortunately, we didn't make it for the 2010 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, which is what we had intended to go for, me and a couple of friends. So what we did is that the next year, 2011, we planned early and we set out to go for at least, we said, let's give ourselves one race to go for, and we started the 2011 Grand Prix. And it's been every year after that.
I read you've attended a race every year since 2011.
Yes.
That's remarkable. That's a dream for many guys.
Well, you work hard and tell yourself, listen, if I have to give myself a holiday, my dream was, let me give myself a holiday at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
What was the first car that you saw on track?
It was a Marussia.
Marussia.
It was very loud. That time we were still having the V8 engines, and some of the videos I taken at that point, I wasn't prepared. We got on track and being total newbie at that time, you want to watch all sessions, practice 1, 2, 3, qualifying and the race. So we got to the track on time, and I think there was a Porsche Super Cup that were on track, because it's not just F1 that is on the circuit. There are a couple of races. Nowadays, you will end up finding that during an F1 weekend, you will have maybe Porsche Super Cup, Formula 3, Formula 2, and then the grand finale, which is F1. So we ended up watching the Porsche Super Cup. I loved it. Then the F1 cars got on track. So we were seated. This is at the North Grandstand at Abu Dhabi Yas Marina. So the first car comes on track, and I noticed that every other person was now putting on the earmuffs and the headphones, and we're like, why are they doing that? So the first car passes, and the noise hits you in your eardrum, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
And then you remember that I left a guy selling those two plastic foam earplugs outside.
Yes.
So by the time the second and third car passes, you couldn't take it anymore. So we had to leave the grandstand, just go to the stand and just buy those foam earplugs, put them on. But then that also doesn't prepare you for when the race comes in. When one car is passing after another, it's a bit bearable.
Yes.
But when you have 20 cars passing at the same time, the noise, the vibration, the smell of rubber, the smell of burning fuel, it's a feeling like no other. So that's what got me hooked. And from then on, I remember after my first race on the flight coming back, I turned to my pal James and I told him, I'm coming again next year.
So that was your first race.
First race, yes.
You're the owner of the Paddock Experience.
Yes.
When did you decide that you also wanted to help other Kenyans attend races?
Well, at first it didn't start out as a Paddock Experience. At first it was just a plan that, listen, if you're going to live life and you want to live a full life, I mean, do something that you've always wanted to do. Most of us end up having what you call bucket lists. And you keep your bucket list that when you're 60, 70, you're going to end up doing A, B, C, D. Why not break down your bucket list to an annual bucket list? Let me do something this year and let me do something next year. Why don't you do what you love? So it started out that, well, let's go for the first race and see how it goes. So went for 2011, went 2012, and by the time I got into for 2013, a couple of friends got in touch and said, hey, why don't you plan? We all go like 5 of us. So I said, okay. So I planned for that trip. So based on the feedback from Facebook and all that, 2014, the crowds started getting bigger, 2015 bigger. So the plan was, now, what do I call this movement? What do I call this club? What do I call this company? It was until I think about 2017 or 2018 that I came up with the name, the Paddock Experience. But previously it was just Macau taking his pals to watch F1. Yeah.
You've organized, I read, trips to, Abu Dhabi, you've mentioned, Monza.
Yes, we've been to Monza in 2016, and that one just happened by accident. I remember the day, I think it was a week before, it was a week before the Monza Grand Prix, 2016, and my pal Richie posts on his WhatsApp status, no, not WhatsApp, Facebook post. He says, Monza, here I come.
Yes.
So I called him, I said, hey, what do you mean? He said, I'm going to Monza. We've planned with Jose and a couple of other guys. I asked him, how are you going to Monza and you're not telling me? He said, oops, I've just told you. Within 3 days, I had my visa, I had my ticket, and on the 4th day, I was on the flight to Italy.
I'm going to come back to that. Malaysia, USA.
Yes, Malaysia was the same thing. 2017.
Yes.
Again with Richie, and he calls me up and tells me, Ken, it's the last Malaysian Grand Prix because they're not renewing. Every year, you have some circuits that have contracts to host F1 races, let's say for about 10 years or so. So that was the time Malaysia decided we're not renewing our contract to host the circuit. And it was the last Malaysian Grand Prix. So it was like, okay, we've never been that side to watch F1. Why don't we go? And it's the last F1 race. So quickly go online. They were selling the tickets as cheap as possible, $95 for a 3-day ticket,
That's
being the last one.
Okay.
So we got on board, we went. When we reached there, we found out that we were not the only Kenyans who were there. There were a couple of Kenyans who were there. And we had lots of fun. We missed going to the Japanese Grand Prix, which is a week later, because we were just so excited having gone for the Malaysian Grand Prix that we didn't plan out the trip. We'd have done Malaysia and Japan, which were back to back.
Do you use partners in this, travel agents, banks, embassies?
Yes. In 2019, I partnered with what's the guy's name? I keep forgetting his name. His name is David Kimani. I can't remember the name of the company, and I'm sure he'll kill me about this. But I partnered with him he's my travel agent for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. We ended up going about 35 people. At the end of that season, Air France and KLM got in touch. They said, listen, we've heard about you, we've gotten feedback, and we want to do business with you. And we said, okay, fine, we're excited. So we set up to start a partnership with Air France and KLM. We had held meetings, I think it was early January 2020. But then in March, COVID hits, and I need to pick that up, by the way.
Okay.
Yes.
What's the process for a fan who wants to attend, say, Abu Dhabi 2022? How do you start the process with them?
We actually at the point of finalizing the plans for Abu Dhabi 2022. Next week, I'm in Dubai with a circuit on finalizing on plans. So by the time I come back, we shall have our offers ready. We want to see if we can take about 100 guys for the Grand Prix. That's the target, 100 guys. We've partnered with hotels. We've partnered with. We are looking for an airline partnership. We're talking to the circuit, and we're talking to a couple of other partners because there are a couple of interesting events that we have planned, not just F1. There's also F1 as well. You mix F1 together with a holiday, together with a culture, together with tourism. In terms of you're touring interesting sites around the venue. If it's Dubai, Abu Dhabi, people have gone for desert safaris, people have gone for yacht cruises and all that. So there's a lot of other interesting events that we are planning, which then culminate with the F1 race. And with Abu Dhabi, what happens is that with each race ticket that you have, whether you buy a 2-day race ticket or a 3-day race ticket, each night there's a concert for free, as long as you're a ticket holder.
Yes.
So you get to watch the concert. We've been fortunate enough to watch 2012 2012 was Eminem.
Can I tell you my story?
Yeah.
I went, I think 2013.
Yes.
I bought the two race day ticket. So
Yes.
3 nights, 2 race days.
Yes.
And it's after I bought my ticket that they announced Jay-Z on Friday.
Oh, you
And
missed Jay-Z.
I missed that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
But I remember going through the airport close to midnight and
Yeah.
thinking, yeah, can we go to the hotel? Then we go to the circuit. Of course, I didn't realize that
It's very far.
the ticket at your hotel is your ticket to everything. Yeah.
Yes.
You can't just rock up to the circuit and
Yeah.
be let in.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
But so yeah, the music is interesting.
2012 Eminem was brilliant. I mean, that guy can rock a concert properly. 2013 was Jay-Z. Can't remember 2014. 2016, Lionel Richie, Rihanna. I was the best.
Okay.
In other years, you've been having a couple of rock concerts. I'm not really a rock person, so, and a couple of European artists that perhaps me and my pals don't relate to, but there've been also some very good hip hop artists who've come there, and it's been a pleasure watching them live.
When you want to take 100 guys to Abu Dhabi, do you buy the tickets up front yourself?
Well, you have to find a way of financing it.
Okay.
So you either buy the ticket up front or you negotiate terms with the circuit supplier. But you have to give the guys payment plans. You can't just do this last minute and tell guys that the race is in November and I rock up in November to go for the race. No. So the plan is we're going to offer guys payment terms. So if you want to buy it in cash, it's going to be X. If you want to pay it in 2 months, X plus slight interest. If it's going to be 3 months, so you have to commit. There'll be a certain deposit where you have to commit, and then the rest you can pay over maximum 6 months.
Okay.
Yes.
You take a risk by offering the package and by investing in it. Then you have to go sell it now to others.
Yes.
Ever been caught out? Let's say 2020 COVID, were you affected?
Now you see, 2020 we didn't buy because by the time COVID hit in March, they had not yet launched. They had not yet launched the ticket prices, and I think towards end of 2019 is when we started hearing about the coronavirus in Wuhan.
Yes.
I think it was towards end of 2019. So I don't think anybody, because we were planning Abu Dhabi, which was now towards the end of the year. Mostly they open up around March, April. So everybody was holding out in terms of, let's see how this thing plays out. So no prices had been set up. Hotels were not even ready. And by the time now, you saw what Corona did in Europe, Italy and all that. So everybody just decided, okay, since Abu Dhabi is towards the end of the year, let's wait and see how this thing goes. But by the time you go to March and Kagwe comes on TV and tells you Corona is in Kenya, that was it. We hadn't made any plans yet, and we hadn't yet made any payments. And even the circuit was not, they hadn't made any sales.
Yes.
And during that year, there were no spectators in all F1 races. But I think for those who had previously bought from previous circuits, whether it was in Europe, who had bought the previous year, I think those one ended up being moved to 2021.
Okay.
Something like that. Yeah.
How you've mentioned the different tourism attractions in Abu Dhabi.
Yes.
Desert Safari, Dubai.
Yes.
I think my friend, he talked about the Louvre Museum. I didn't realize it's also there.
Yes, there's a Louvre in Abu Dhabi.
Okay.
There's a Grand Mosque in Abu Dhabi, which is brilliant.
A Ferrari World was so big. I didn't realize how big it was. So we only spent about...
Ferrari World is very big. I've been there enough times. Nowadays, it ceased being an attraction to me. I mean,
okay.
If you've not been there, it's a place to go. You enjoy all the roller coasters, with the pinnacle being the Formula Rossa. It gives you the experience of a Formula One car. I didn't know how fast it was until the first time. I mean, when you're getting onto the roller coaster and the guy tells you, okay, remove anything that's loose.
Okay.
And you ask him, what do you mean? He tells you, even your watch, it's loose. It will get thrown off. You're like, Kwani, how fast is this thing?
Yes.
And when you get seated and when that thing, because they count you down, the guy tells you, okay, ready, 5, 4, and you're not sure. When that thing hits 1, before you get your senses, what's happening? You have screamed, you have yelled, you have called for your mother, grandmother, and everybody else. And I remember, because the ride is about 56 seconds. So when you do the first 56 seconds,
yes,
you don't know what has happened. Your body is feeling weird. In fact, never go there when you've drunk any alcohol. So I did it the first time, went, sat down and said, that thing is fun. It's crazy, but it's fun.
Okay.
So we did it a second time, a third time. We came back the next day. We came back over the years. I've done it like 10 times, and it's fun. If you've not done it, just be prepared. Let me not kill the fun.
Okay.
If somebody hasn't done it, just go there prepared for craziness.
I'm going to ask how you cater for different groups, but from the first race you organized, what changes have you made to the package where you say, take this out, add that, we must do a pit walk, what are things which are now for you must have on your package?
Well, if you're a first timer and you're an F1 fan, I would advise you take the 3-day race ticket. With a 3-day race ticket comes a 4th day, which is Thursday, because the 3-day race ticket covers Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Now, you're given a 4th ticket, which covers Thursday. Now, what you do on Thursday is a pit lane walk, where you have access to the circuit, you have access to the pit lane, where you just get to see the mechanics and the crew set up the cars. It's a good opportunity for you to take your photos. It's a good photos of the cars, photos of the track. That's where you see guys go on the track, on the start grid and taking selfies and all that. If you're lucky, you'll get a chance to meet some drivers. Some do come on track. You'll get to see the pit crews practice their pit stops, which is quite interesting and loud. You don't realize how loud it is until you're on circuit. You'll get to see some of the cars being taken to the weighbridge, being set up. You just see them being dismantled and being set up. You realize that those things nowadays they're quite huge, but previously they were very tiny. And if you're lucky, you get to meet a driver who comes out. I've met Schumacher, Alonso, Massa, Hamilton from a distance, because the line to get that autograph is crazy. Yes. People come and wait in line for about 6 hours, and the driver only has like 20 minutes to sign autographs, and that's it. So if you want, possibly you'll have to be there as early as 10 a.m. for a 2 p.m. slot.
Well, the races you've been to, we're talking quite a bit about Abu Dhabi, but what other race gives you a good experience, similar? What's
Monza.
one that is Monza's also good?
Monza is brilliant. Okay. If you've watched any Italian Grand Prix at Monza, because nowadays there are 2 Italian Grand Prix, Imola and Monza. But if you've watched the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, at the end, you find the fans storm the start-finish straight. That happens 3 laps before the end of the race.
What?
Yes, where now, I remember 2016, Rosberg won the race, and 3 laps before you'll find now the marshals tell you, okay, come.
Okay.
So you get off your seat, because we were seated at the grandstand at the first corner. So we get off the seats and everybody rushes to one of the gates. And on the last lap, just after the last car has crossed, the gates are open. Okay. And now you're allowed to go on circuit. So the experience of, just looking up what you see on TV in terms of the drivers spraying champagne on you guys and all that, that experience is lovely. To watch the Italians see a Ferrari driver, either in P2 or P3, that atmosphere there is crazy. It's crazy. Italy is one of the places that if you're a Formula One fan and you're a Ferrari fan, go to Monza. It will never disappoint you.
I watched a bit of your video on YouTube, Abu Dhabi last year. How was that? We saw the Orange Army.
Oh, dear. A mixture of excitement, disappointment, and everything else rolled up into one. I think for the first time in Abu Dhabi, nobody sat down during the entire race. Because normally, you'll get there, get to your seat, sit down, national anthem, and you're just talking to a couple of fans here. By the time the cars take off, by the time you're into lap 5, lap 10, you're already seeing it's now becoming more or less a procession. Yes. Hamilton is ahead, this guy is behind, they're more or less controlling the race. So you end up meeting other fans and just having a chat rather than concentrating on the race, because you're like, Hamilton is winning this. You will enjoy the on-track action because we were seated at the South Grandstand. That's at the end of the second DRS zone. So you end up watching that. But now, last year, being a championship winning race, the other championship winning race before that, I think, was 2014 and 2016.
Yeah.
2014, it was double points, whereby the winner of the last race would get 50 points and not 25.
That was a controversial Eccleston thing.
Yes. And then now 2016, when
Rosberg
won, and you could see Hamilton actually literally slowing down, because you could actually see him on track slowing down and trying to push Rosberg back into Vettel's hands, because Vettel was third.
Yes.
So now, when we were there last year, I went with my pal Mose. So what happened is that we get on track, and it's as if all Dutch people were told destination is Abu Dhabi. Everywhere was orange. You were either a Max fan or a Hamilton fan. You could not find any. Very few Ferrari fans could be picked up.
Okay.
By the 1, 2, 3 people, but everywhere you looked, there was the Orange Army. So as the race started and Hamilton overtakes Max into the first turn, everyone went silent. And during the entire race, the Orange Army were quiet.
Yes.
Until the last lap. And chaos just exploded. But they knew what had happened. And they knew it wasn't right, because as you are looking, we're wondering, okay, and you're watching it and saying, okay, this thing is either ending under safety car, because you're seeing, okay, there's only one lap remaining and lapped cars have to all unlap themselves. So you're only seeing 5 cars unlap themselves, and we're busy discussing, saying, hey, what's happening here? Because we're not privy. There's a lot of noise. Everyone is excited. So we're not privy to what's happening on commentary on TV, right? So we're busy asking ourselves and asking one another, what's happening? What has this guy done? Because you could, the circuit has screens, and you could read on screen that lapped cars will not overtake themselves. So we knew and we're excited. Hamilton is winning. Next thing you're seeing, only 5 cars will unlap themselves. Next thing you see, safety car in, racing to resume with 1 lap. And so before we are busy discussing, Hamilton is passed by Max into the first corner. Orange Army explodes. While we are trying to figure out what is happening, Hamilton tries to pass Max at the banked corner, right in front of us. And we were yelling for him to pass. And but we knew it's going to be difficult, because Max was on soft tires and fresher tires. Hamilton was on tires that had done 40-something laps. And that was it. That was the last place he needed to pass. And if we think about it, Max could have had a crash and still been world champion.
Okay.
Yeah, and so when he didn't pass him at the banked corner, we knew that's it. But at the back of our minds, we're like, there's something happening here that we're not privy to. Okay. So when the race ends, and you could even hear they're giving announcement that there's a protest, because you're watching on TV that Toto Wolff is annoyed and he's banging on his desk. So we're now going to social media and that's when you're seeing Twitter exploding.
Yes.
And you're finding out, okay, Michael Massey did this and did that. And like, okay, why did he do that? So when the race ends and there's a place where you could have a drink. It's called the Oasis Bar. And we're sitting with Orange Army guys there, and they knew they were lucky. They were not in that celebratory mood, like they've just won a championship. They knew they were lucky, and Mercedes had put in a protest, and we didn't know the outcome of the protest. So the celebrations at the circuit were quite subdued.
Okay.
Yes, where the Orange Army knew that, okay, this thing could go either way. I think all through, everybody was like, is the FIA going to overturn this? It's until I think the season started.
Yeah.
Is when we knew that, listen, this thing is not happening. But guys were kind of hoping that it's going to be done. But by then, Max had already been crowned F1 champion at the FIA Gala. And people were slowly accepting to move on.
Okay.
Yeah, but I can't say it was interesting. It was tough for Mercedes fans. If you are a Red Bull fan, you are happy. Yeah.
Back to Nairobi. Mm-hmm. Do corporations approach you when they want to arrange, say, you have they are local sponsors of something and they want to give somebody the grand prize, a trip to a F1 race? Do they approach you?
Yeah. Yes. Currently, we've partnered with the Rev at Village Market. So this weekend we are having the Imola Grand Prix. We are having a hosting party at K1, Pitch and Butch.
Okay.
And we have a couple of prizes to be won. This morning we had an interview with Trace Radio whereby we are giving out a voucher for anyone who can predict the winner of the sprint race, which is tomorrow, as well as the winner of the Grand Prix on Sunday. So whoever predicts will pick, those are two winners, one winner for the sprint race and one winner for the Grand Prix will get vouchers to utilize at the Rev.
I'm going to ask you about other Kenyans who you typically meet at the circuit, but when we had something close with a link with a Sport Pesa sponsoring a team, how was 2017? Did you see any interest in more Kenyans?
I think there's a lot of interest that was picked because of Sport Pesa supporting Force India at that time. But we all know what happened with Gava clamping down on betting companies, and that quickly went south. And I think the next year they removed their sponsorship because of what had happened. But the interest seems to be picking up a lot, not just because of Sport Pesa. I think there's a younger crowd that wants to know more about F1. Most of this younger crowd are followers of Lewis Hamilton, but some do appreciate that before Lewis Hamilton, there was a sport that had previous championships. If you were today to do a quiz of Formula One and you to do it with a young crowd, unless you're doing it with and asking questions about Hamilton, because most of them would know about that.
Okay.
But you end up finding that there are some who want to know more about the sport all the way from when it started till now. And they are picking that interest by wanting to find out more about F1, not just from foreign journalists and all that, but they want to find out more about local guys. They are keen in just the same way football has a following and people meet up to watch football in clubs. You end up finding that a lot of people want to sit together and watch Formula One as a club.
Yes.
There's no fun in watching Formula One at home on TV. You want to watch it in a setting whereby we can all cheer our team together, whether it's Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes, Alpine, or Haas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you consider yourself an ambassador? I mean, did you ever have an experience when you're checking out of the hotel and the manager would say, "Hey, I don't know, you Kenyans are so cool. Can you bring more guys next year?" Or
would I consider myself an ambassador? I don't know.
Okay.
Perhaps. What I know is that when a Kenyan meets a Kenyan out there, you forget, you drop everything. We're not one tribe. We are Kenyan at the end of the day. And it's very interesting. You'll meet Kenyans at all the weird places. You walk into a subway station in Italy, and a guy just looks at your Kenyan T-shirt and tells you, "Sasa," and you're like, "Oh, excuse me." Yeah, you walk into a taxi, you hail down a taxi in Abu Dhabi, and you enter the taxi, and the guy is speaking Swahili, and he tells you, "I'm from Kisii."
Okay.
Yeah, so it's very interesting when you meet Kenyans out there. I think Kenyans are more friendly abroad than locally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you get interest from other African nations, guys, maybe guys in Zambia or Uganda saying?
Well, I've met a couple of guys from Zimbabwe, Nigeria. Recently, one of our club members was in Ghana, and she hooked up with the club in Ghana to watch, I think it was the Bahrain, was it Jeddah Grand Prix?
Okay.
Right? And perhaps later on this year, we should do something with Ghana. We also had she hooked up to watch the Bahrain Grand Prix in Ghana. And later on, when she came back to the country to watch the Jeddah Grand Prix, she brought up one of her work colleagues who was from Bangalore in India.
Okay.
And he went back to India with the intention of setting up for Formula One club. And today he sent me a text and said, "Hey, my Formula One club in Bangalore is up and running, and they're hosting, I think, their first race this weekend."
Well done.
So the interest seems to be growing, and we're hoping one day to have a Paddock Experience in other countries. Maybe not just watch a Grand Prix, but also to get two of these clubs to also go and meet one another. perhaps and I mentioned to the guy, he's called Kamal, I mentioned to Kamal, when your guys are coming to Kenya, hook them up with us so that we can host them for an F1 race. But we're hoping to do something with other countries as well. It's in the pipeline.
You mentioned K1 Imola. For the races on Sunday in two days' time.
Yes.
What are your predictions about?
I doubt whether there are going to be any updates brought by teams, because this is a sprint race. By a sprint race, meaning that you have qualifying on Friday, sprint race on Saturday, and the main race on Sunday. Unlike your traditional race day, where you have practice 1 and 2 on a Friday, if you bring updates to a sprint race and the updates don't work, and in practice 1, then you're screwed. Then you'll end up having to, if they work, good for you. If they don't work, then you see it's a setback. So most teams end up not bringing updates, but to go with what they are sure of that they have. So we're expecting very few updates from Australia.
Okay.
So my prediction is, I'm a Ferrari fan. So my prediction is Ferrari P1, P2. We expect Red Bull to up their game. They're having a couple of issues with reliability. Helmut Marko and Christian Horner said, we are going to push our car. If it breaks, it breaks. Mercedes said they're not bringing any updates, so do not expect any miracles. A couple of teams, I think it's AlphaTauri, said they're going to bring updates. So let's see how the midfield goes. But on top, I'd expect Ferrari and Red Bull fighting for the win of the sprint race. Maybe Max wins the sprint race and Leclerc wins the main race. But Carlos Sainz also has a point to prove. Carlos Sainz, if you followed F1 this week, has renewed his contract for another 2 years till end of 2024. So both drivers are now settled till end of 2024. And Carlos was pushing for pole in Australia before he was caught out by the red flag when Alonso crashed. That was quite unfortunate, because Carlos has been having an issue with heating up his tires with new tires. He's comfortable with used tires, but he's been having issues with heating up his new tires. He seemed to have picked up in Australia, but was just caught out. He would have taken pole. In my opinion, Carlos was going for pole, but he was 10 meters too short.
And then I think he got disoriented, and then his weekend went downhill after that.
He had an issue because when they went out again, what happened was, I think they had an issue with taking him out at the wrong time, and he had to push on his out lap, so he burnt up his tires quite easily. So when he went for the hot lap, I think in one of the corners he went slightly wide. That messed him up into P9. When they started the race with the harder tires. Temperatures had dropped, so the hard tires were taking too long to heat up. He was quite aggressive in terms of trying to pass very early. Lost it, I think, in one of the corners, went out, hit the gravel, and that was it. I think he was too eager to get to the front, knowing that he has a very fast car, because at the end, during the post-race interview, he even said that, listen, it was my mistake, because he knew he could see Leclerc won, and he knew they had a fast car. He would have been P2, P3.
Okay.
So it was but I expect him, if Paul is not Leclerc, then Carlos.
Okay.
Yeah.
Looking forward to Abu Dhabi later this year. What other races would you dream of organizing this year, next year?
Monza this year would be nice. Austria would be nice. And Zandvoort would be nice. Hungary too. But if not this year, I think we want to focus on Monza, Italy, and Abu Dhabi. Next year, we want to start as early as possible and maybe do about 5-6 races. But it depends on crowd. There's no point of going for a race one person.
Okay.
If we can get a crowd of at least 10 guys, then we can go for a race.
If honestly you talk about numbers, when you talk about Abu Dhabi, that might be about $2,000, 200,000 shillings. Are European races more? Where would you place a European race, an American race, an Asian race?
Abu Dhabi will end up costing you right now about, let's say, 2,500 and above. So we're working on the rates to try and make them affordable as possible. We have to work with the dollar because Kenya shilling is misbehaving towards the dollar.
Oh, yes.
When we started in January, the dollar was what, 102, 104? Yesterday when I was doing a transaction, it was 118.
Yeah. Yes.
So you have to work with the dollar. European races tend to be more expensive. Accommodation, travel is expensive. Abu Dhabi flight to Dubai is cheap.
Yes.
Hotels are more affordable, but this year hotels will be more expensive because of World Cup, which is in Qatar.
Yes.
The spillover of lack of hotels, or rather hotels are getting filled up in Qatar. The spillover is in Dubai. So people end up staying in Dubai and Abu Dhabi and flying to Qatar to watch the race, to watch to watch football.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are some of the things that we're finalizing next week.
Thank you so much, Mbalu. It's been a wonderful talk today.
Welcome. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you. Please follow Mbalu Makau. He's on Twitter. And then there's a Paddock Experience. It's on Instagram.
Yes.
There's a YouTube channel.
Yes, the YouTube channel is the Paddock Experience.
Paddock Experience.
Where we post all our hosting parties. We pick up the content for the hosting parties and post there. Our Instagram channel, the Paddock Experience, is where we are building up our following. We're quite young, but the following seems to be growing, and we're hoping to pick up from there and see where this goes.
This Sunday, you're all at K1.
This Sunday we're at K1, yes, Pitch and Butch.
Okay.
Yes, and we are hoping. Well, the aim of the Paddock Experience is that we've partnered with a company called 33 Beats. They are the DJs and event entertainment hosts. And what happens is that the aim is not just to settle on one location or one venue, but to have the Paddock Experience bring F1 all around Kenya. So we are talking to other venue partners so that this weekend it may be at K1, next weekend it may be somewhere else. You never know. The aim is in that surprise, just like F1 today is in Italy. Next time it will be in Miami. The next time it will be in Spain. So that's what we do for each and every venue. So this weekend, K1 is Imola.
Okay.
Next weekend, or rather next 2 weeks after that, the next location, we'll call it Miami.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the aim around all that.
Cool. I won't be able to join you this Sunday, but I hope to join on a future race.
Yeah.
You please follow the Paddock Experience on all the accounts we've mentioned. Thank you so much. I'm Limo Taboi at Semabox, the Baraza Media Lab on Riverside Drive. Please follow the MLF1 podcast, and have a nice day and have a nice race in Italy. Thank you.
Thank you.